Hello and welcome to the Coaching Crowd podcast with me, Zoe Hawkins, and my friend and co-host Jo Wheatley.
Hi, everybody. Great to be here with you this week. Today, we are talking about the question, which is, do coaches need coaches? We get this come up a lot in the Coaching Crowd group. And when we asked recently about what podcast episodes would you like us to record, this was one at the top of the list.
Absolutely. And I think let's start with some clarity. Well, I say clarity, whereas actually my answer to this question is yes, absolutely. Coaches need coaching, and also not all the time. So we don't have to feel that just because we're a coach, we need to be in a coaching relationship all the time to be legitimate or to feel authentic as a coach. And maybe we'll just talk about that and shed a bit more light on it.
Yes, absolutely. So we might just take you through a few examples of situations where you might decide that you would like to have a coach. And the first, maybe most obvious one is when you make the shift to starting your own coaching business, all of a sudden you're going to be faced with new challenges. You're going to feel maybe like an expert coach, but when it comes to building a marketing strategy or how much to charge or doing live videos and promotional things, you may feel that that's starting to trigger some new thoughts and feelings that you would like to explore and overcome any obstacles that come up for you. So that would be an obvious example. For example, coaching on money mindset or coaching on getting comfortable with being more visible.
Yeah, and I think this is actually a really important part of being a coach, because I think there is the seeking support for which marketing strategy should I have? Like, how do I actually sell? And I said that is more your mentoring and teaching. And I think once you have kind of the mentoring and the teaching piece in the bag, then you start to realize, well, now I've got all of the knowledge that I need. And now I've got all of the pieces of information to move forward. So how come then I'm not doing all the things that I would like to be able to do? And that's where you start to come into contact, I think, with new mindset challenges. As you said there, Jo, like money mindset is a new one that we know many coaches go through, because it's often the first time that they have to start charging for themselves rather than being able to sit behind the face of an organization. So yeah, coaching, as you know, as coaches, that's the ideal challenge, block, obstacle, opportunity to take to a coaching relationship.
And then if you're an internal coach, there might be some stuff that comes up for you in terms of the boundaries that you're having to hold, of knowledge that you do have, but also don't bring to the coaching conversation, and the challenges that might bring for you. And whilst there's practical things that you can do about that, you might find that it's raising questions in your mind. It may even be around, do I want to be an internal coach, but I love coaching, I'm not sure what I want to do about it. Or you might be somebody that is currently working in any type of role and thinking that you might like to pivot and become a coach, and you might want to have some coaching around that decision-making process.
Yeah. And I think, and initially, as you were talking there, sometimes when you're a coach, there is a blend of what do you bring to supervision and actually what do you bring to coaching, because the two can sometimes feel a little bit muddled. And I think as you were talking there around how well am I holding boundaries and, how am I feeling when I'm about my clients or when I'm coaching, I think initially a lot of that you would probably take to a supervision conversation to notice and explore. And then through supervision, you might become aware of a different challenge that you might want to take into coaching. And I think, so when we talk about do coaches need to have coaching, actually also look at your supervision provision, because a lot of those challenges and obstacles you might experience as a coach, you would work through with your supervisor. That's also then in benefit of your clients, so there's you as the person, as the tool, if you like, that you can take to supervision. And I know with my supervisor, I've often talked about my own energy and how I'm feeling and experiencing coaching. And there have been times, particularly during lockdown, where I had life, going on around my coaching business. And we weaved in some of that because obviously we're inextricably linked, aren't we, with our life and our work. So supervision is also a space. So yes, you may not be in coaching, but you might be in supervision. And ultimately, this is really about being able to identify as a coach, what are the needs that you have and how are you getting those met? And of course, they'll change, depending on what's going on with you and in your world at the time.
Yeah. So if you were taking to supervision, over identifying with your coachees, and you explore that in supervision, and what comes out of that supervision is that you have got topics in your life that you're not addressing, and therefore when your clients come, you are over identifying with them, then you might identify, well, that's something I need to explore in coaching around how I am or I'm not approaching or resolving these situations in my private life. Your supervisor is not going to work with you on those issues. Or if you find that there's a theme coming up in supervision, which is around endings and beginnings, and you're reluctant to end your supervision, your coaching relationship, and so you try and extend it in some way that maybe isn't needed, then yes, you might explore that in supervision. And you might identify that there is a theme that you want to take away from that and get some coaching around, because it also applies to other areas of your life. So as Zoe was saying, it's not a hard and fast boundary, as you know, in the coaching world necessarily, but those are some things that you might take into account.
I think what's interesting when you're a coach is you're likely to have contacts and support from other coaches. So there is the entering into a formal coaching relationship, and that might be, I don't know, 6 sessions over 6 months with a particular refined goal. But I know in a lot of our journey, me and you have acted as each other's coaches. Now, of course, not in a contracted paid capacity, but where I might be having a challenge of like, right, I've got this piece of work, I'm just really stuck with it, I don't know where I'm going with it, and I hop on a call to Jo, who's also my friend. Typically she'll coach me through it. Right, so what have you done so far? What's happening for you now? What are you feeling? And almost by osmosis, Jo has been my coach for many years. So then when it comes to coaching, I tend to be looking for more niche style coaching. Like I have a strong inner coach, and as everybody, I think, who learns to be a coach does, we do develop the skills to be able to coach ourselves through a number of different scenarios.
Yeah. And I think you were talking about like the 6 1.5 hour sessions. There might be times we think, I don't need or want deep transformational coaching because I have this this ability to coach myself using the skills that I've got, which isn't to say there's no more room for growth, but actually I'm doing okay with that kind of thing. But if you ask me, do I want 15 minutes of coaching on a weekly basis, then yes, absolutely, just to check I'm not missing anything, or to get closure on something so I can enjoy my weekend, or something else. So when we talk about do coaches need coaches, there's such a broad range of choice. You might choose, as Zoe was saying, to do peer coaching, and that might feel a need for you. Zoe mentioned earlier about, a mentor. Do coaches need mentors? Well, yes, they can benefit from having a mentor in the same way as they can benefit from having a coach. But the timing is important. And as Zoe said earlier, it comes back to what your need is.
I think there's something around checking in with yourself. Like, are you resisting working with a coach? If we flip it on its head, you're a coach, you've developed all these wonderful self-coaching skills, you've got all these tools in your toolbox. And so now if you encounter a challenge or an obstacle, your default position might be of, actually, no, I don't need a coach. I'm perfectly fine. I'm capable of doing myself. And there may be an element of resistance that you come up against as you look at your growth and where you could go next. And I think that is often useful, just to check in. Like if you're not working with a coach and you're experiencing some level of challenge or obstacle, asking yourself that question, is there something here I'm resisting? Because that might unlock for you insight into another layer of possible growth and potential that you're currently not able to see.
I think also, one of the reasons that people might experience resistance is knowing the transformational potential of a coaching relationship and how deep that can go can almost put people off. So we know that when people have been through our coaching training, which is deep and transformational, they get to the end of it and they're like, that was amazing, I've had such a transformation, am I ready to do more right now? No, I need a break. I need just a period to embed all that I've experienced and all the possibilities and the ideas that I've got coming out of that. So, watching what your energy is. But yes, that resistance can come from the fear almost of, if you fully apply yourself as a coachee to coaching, it actually does take a lot of energy to be present, get the most from it, and then obviously make the changes outside of those sessions.
And I would add, coaches can be tricky people to coach, because we have very, very high expectations upon our coaches around, what we're looking for. I think when you have, a strong understanding of what your needs are, and you spend time coaching people, you know what you like and what you don't like, I think the coach really needs to spend quite a lot of time with you, co-creating that relationship and really understanding your expectations. And I think that matching process is really, really, it's really important anyway. But I think when you're a coach looking for a coach, sometimes I think what gets in the way of maybe not working with a coach is not being able to find the coach that lights you up or that you feel really drawn to working with. So I think, that's with the shoe on the other foot of, do coaches need coaching? Yes. And if you do, how do you actually find one that you feel really drawn to work with?
And that's often why coaches do lots of CPD, because they get to be coached by the other trainees on the course, whilst also knowing the coaching style of the other person, or what it is that they're doing with that. And often that is a reason why people come to train to be coaches in the first place, because they'd like some support, but they might find it difficult to say, actually, I need some help. So by doing the course, it bypasses the requirement to say, actually, I could really benefit from some support right now.
I know when I was looking for a coach recently, and it was in the field of spirituality, it was a lot easier for me to find a coach because it was a field that I knew nothing about. So I was looking for a coach to help me understand some stuff related to a spiritual awakening. And I literally remember starting with this coach being like, right, like, I'm literally in your hands. Where do we start? How does this work? And some clients are like that with coaching, aren't they? Like, right, I've heard that coaching's a really good thing, and I know a little bit about it, but how is this actually going to be? And so for me, choosing a coach in that niche was actually relatively easy, because I had no expectations. And I think when you're a coach and you have expectation, you know exactly what's going to happen. As you say, it invites in a whole other manner of thoughts and expectations before you can choose how to go ahead.
Oh, and we've had coaching together on our business relationship, and that requires both of us to feel comfortable with the person that we're going to be working with, and what we're going to be working on, what success looks like during that period. And if I think about now, what sort of coach would I most benefit from working with? I think it would be around stepping into that co-CEO role, although we have been CEOs of the business for a long time now. I think we're both conscious that we're at a different point in the business journey, and there's some newness attached to that. And it's wanting to do that and lean into that in a values aligned way. And also to, what are my blind spots around that? Is the fascination around that, and also how we do that together in growing our team and how we show up for our team as well.
And I think what we're saying here is the coaching that you may choose to engage in is as any client would choose to engage with a coach. It's because you're noticing that there is a need that you want additional support for. We don't advocate working with a coach just because you're a coach, because that somehow that makes you a better coach or a more authentic coach. However, I would say that if you are a coach who is offering coaching services and you have never invested in coaching yourself, I know for me, I felt a lot more incongruence offering coaching services after I had invested in my own coach. It just felt easier for me because I knew how much I had invested in a coach and the value that I'd got for it. So I felt a lot better around my fees and the value. So yes, we can cognitively know that coaching is, something that is valuable and something that people enjoy. But I think when you've actually had a whole personal experience of it yourself, paying from your own pocket, if that's what you're asking your own clients to do, it makes that, for me anyway, it made that whole process much smoother.
I also think having coaching with different coaches gives you insight as a coach into different coaching styles. So a bit like when you're on a training program and you get to be coached by everybody in your cohort, and there'll be little pieces that you pick up from each person, or phrases or questions you think that was great. I think when you are being coached and you are a coach, you often still have those two hats on. One is I'm having my own personal experience of this as a coachee, and most coaches have that very strong learner element to them, or desire, passion. And so you're looking, or at least in your reflections around, what was it that was really powerful in that? How did we do that? How did they do these various things? So I think it can have all of that value for you, to be able to gain from it. And really, what's the purpose of coaching? Well, the purpose of coaching is, can be a number of things. Well-being, how are you doing as a coach? How are you doing in terms of looking after and investing in your own well-being? Is that something even that you often neglect? Could you benefit from having coaching around that aspect, because you are somebody that is often in service of others in the profession of coaching, as well as we said, like might be on business topics, or actually the practicalities of life might be a bit more of a challenge.
Yeah, and I think as an internal coach, what's something that often comes up, well, actually I say internal coaching, but I think this comes up with coaches as well, is as you start to form that identity of, right, I'm a coach now, that can often kick in old, sort of more dormant beliefs that you thought you might have kicked into the long grass, right? So imposter, for example, can come out of like, well, how can I call myself a coach if, there's all these other coaches out there that have been doing it for years? Well, that's a mindset piece that is coming up. And you may have dealt with feelings of imposter when you first entered your last job, or I don't know, some other scenario. And, as you enter into these new identities, it can just bring up old dormant beliefs. So that can be another indication of it's a useful time to start engaging with a coach to work through some of those things before they become an obstacle or a block for you.
So that's been a little bit of a meander through answering the question, do coaches need coaches? So I hope there were some jewels in there for you. If you are a coach and you're looking for more support, you might be interested to join our business lounge, where we support coaches in various aspects of their business. If you are right at the start of your journey, you might be interested to join us for our accredited coaching training. You can find details of all of those at igcompany.co.uk.